Hello there. Welcome back to StarrCast. This is Lisa Starr of Win Business, and I am happy to welcome one of my good friends from pretty much the other side of the world from where I am, the hot, sunny climate of Dubai. We have Kathryn Moore joining us today. She is the founder and managing director of Spa Connectors and also the founder and managing director of the Hall of Wellness Awards, both of which we'll elaborate on later. Welcome, Kathryn.
Thank you, Lisa. Great to be here.
Great to have you here. So, Kathryn grew up in Perth, correct? In Western
Yep.
Australia, and started off on her journey to get where she is today. And Kathryn will elaborate for us on what happened along that journey.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. I think actually I wanted to be an architect when I was young.
Really?
Yeah, I used to draw like floor plans and houses and things, and not sure, somewhere along the way that dream obviously went off somewhere. I remember in year 10 at school I did commerce, and we had to create our own business, and the girls that I was in a group with, we created a skirt business, so an A-line skirt, which was like the fashion at the time. And we didn't actually factor in that I was the only person who knew how to sew, and all we were like really actually interested in was going out for business lunches and what we could expense on the business. But it kind of got my juices flowing in the sense of business, and I love the idea of being able to create a concept, market it, come up with a name, and then sell it. And we sold out of the skirts.
Did you? That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really fun.
But you had to sew them all.
Yeah, I had to sew. Yeah, that bit wasn't fun. I wasn't particularly good at zips, so
right, zippers are hard.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, thanking my mum for teaching me to sew. But yes, that was a challenge. So, but yeah, so I started to really love the idea of business, and I always sort of came up with business ideas and so forth. For me, I then, school, I wasn't overly academic. I would say I'm probably a bit more street smart than, say, intellectual. Didn't love studying. I think it's my attention span is, I'm always like on to the next thing, always thinking about things. So started commerce at uni. I decided, so commerce in Australia is like a business degree.
Sure.
I don't know, they don't have it in all different countries, so sometimes it needs to explain. And not really knowing what exactly I wanted to do, I then also started working in restaurants. So I then went on to running restaurants and nightclubs after I finished studying. But for me, it was more about, I really think it was about creating this concept and not understanding what the customer wanted and bringing it to life, and then, creating a business out of it. And that's what I love doing. And I think for me, I actually moved over to Melbourne from Perth after studying, and I was working full-time in nightclubs, and that was full on, and I drank way too much.
But that's good training for customer service.
Oh God, yeah.
If you can deal with drunk people, then you can deal with anyone.
100%. So I started in running a restaurant that was a 24-hour diner style thing that was a chain of them in Australia. There was maybe 5 or 6. I started with them in Perth whilst I was studying, and then they sent me over to Melbourne to run their store. And I was like 21 or something, 20. And it was a 250-seater restaurant. It was a 24-hour restaurant. It had a takeaway section.
That's a lot of seats.
Yeah, and it was right next to the Princess Theatre, which had all of the musicals. So it was just, we'd have the huge influx of people prior to the events and so forth. It was crazy. I mean, I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was, I just kind of was winging it, as I do with things that I say yes to and then work out how to do it later, which is probably one of my mottos. but yeah, I got into hospitality, really did love it. Learned about, creating the processes of guest service journey. What is it that, essentially you need to create in a business to keep a customer happy and so forth. Got involved in a lot of training as well, in the F&B space. But like really I was working too late, drinking too much, and it just wasn't a very healthy lifestyle, and I couldn't really see where it would go. And yeah, money wasn't great. So I had always been into beauty, in the sense that I was the one who would do my friend's hair for all of our
You had
balls.
that knack for it.
Yeah, somehow, I don't know how I did it, but just somehow I could do updos, and I could do like all sorts of things. I would always do my makeup for my friends.
I was that person too. So
yeah, I don't know. It was just fun. I loved it. And I was also like always interested in what was the latest skincare and all this. I had quite bad skin. Like, wasn't that, I mean, I had breakouts here and there, which would always lead me to wanting to know like what I can do to make my skin better and so forth. So I was always, I guess, fascinated by beauty industry. And somewhere along the way, when I was in Melbourne, I came up with the idea of getting into the beauty industry.
Out of restaurants and into beauty.
Yeah, I didn't really have the plan that I was going to be a beauty therapist. It was very much around understanding beauty therapy. I've been thinking back to that time now, thinking what was I actually thinking and why did I do it? But it's been so beneficial because it's really allowed me to understand the technical side of the business, and it's really helped me in everything that I've done in my career so far. So I did a beauty therapy diploma in Melbourne whilst I was running a nightclub, and that was fun. So in the nightclub,
so school in the daytime, work at night.
Yeah, but that's not an unusual story for a lot of people. So I did that and started to get to know people in the industry, and came across a few people that are friends of mine today that I really saw as mentors. Vanessa Gay, who's not in the industry anymore. Amazing women that were doing super cool things around the world. Vanessa Main was in the Maldives doing Paraquam, creating these incredible spas in the Maldives. What I saw is like living the dream.
Right.
And I started to think, well, actually, there's something in this industry.
Yeah, that looks kind of fun.
Yeah, exactly. But I also liked the idea of creating these luxury experiences, and like looking at what was out there as what is the latest and greatest. And I still love doing that today. When I do conceptual work for the spa consulting side of my business, I really do love coming up with new concepts for our clients. And I'm always on Instagram, always looking at like what's happening, who's doing what is the customer feedback to these particular concepts, because I think it's important to really understand what's going on. So so I finished my beauty therapy diploma, and because I'd had management experience in running the F&B restaurants, and I'd done my study around business, I got a job working at Hilton in Melbourne as a spa manager. So, I mean, it was a 6-room spa, not many facilities. Australia really struggles with spas. Only in the last few years have they created some really lovely ones, but even then the facilities are limited, just from the cost of the build and the cost to operate them. There's not a lot of margin in it, so it's not like the rest of the world where every hotel has amazing facilities. So I did that for some years, and met my husband at the time, who's not my husband anymore.
Sorry for him.
Yes, his loss. He got transferred to Thailand with his job, and so I thought, well, where else, should we go for me to kickstart my career in the international hospitality spa wellness arena? So we moved to Thailand, and it's funny. I always think everything's meant to be, but a few months prior to us going, um, I had come across MSpa online and always thought, wow, these guys look amazing, and had sent them messages via their website saying, what's going on. If you got some jobs happening, I'm, want to move abroad. How do I go about getting a job overseas? And I'd never actually heard anything back from them, but always had them kind of in my line of sight.
On your radar.
Yeah, I'd love to work for them. And then moved to Hua Hin in Thailand, which is a few hours out of Bangkok, where Shivasom is actually. And I actually let Vanessa Gay know that I was going there, and bizarrely, maybe a month or so after I'd moved there, she messaged me to say that there was a spa director job for 2 properties in Hua Hin, which Hua Hin has a population of 300,000 people and maybe like 15 hotels. So the likeliness of a decent job for an expat
wasn't high.
Yeah, it's like, what? Oh my God, I have to get this job. And they were willing to pay for an expat, which was usually quite unusual. And so, yeah, and it turned out it was MSpa, looking after the Mandara at the Marriott and the Anantara at the Anantara. So, yeah, got that job, and yeah, that was the start of my 8 years with Minor.
So you went from looking after one spa in Melbourne to 3 spas in Thailand, a new country. You don't speak the language. I don't think you speak Thai anyway. How was it to manage your staff, who I'm sure were mostly Thai?
So I guess the learning curve for me, first of all, was that going there, you don't have to worry about payroll. And so to start with, my headset was like, payroll, what do we have to do? And then they were like, listen, you don't need to worry about any of this. You can have as many staff as you want because they cost next to nothing. But what you do have to understand is the culture, how to work with the people, and also how to drive people from the hotel into the spa. So you'd have all sorts of KPIs, capture rate, average spend, obviously revenue targets and so forth. But these were all things that I'd obviously had a P&L to deal with before at Hilton, but nothing quite like what MSpa did. Because MSpa had, I think when I was first started, they had 35 spas.
Wow.
Half of them, actually, no, not half of them, probably 9 of them or so were part of the Minor hotel group, but the rest of them were third party spa deals. They were essentially a spa management company to start with. And so for me, it was getting my head around all these KPIs and, how do I impact them, and how do I read these very complicated P&Ls, and how do I forecast, every month. And it was, a learning curve. But I guess from a cultural perspective, it was really just understanding how to get the most out of your team. And my GM at the time, I remember him sitting me down and giving me a book and just saying, go and read this, because you really need to work out like what to do with these team members, because you can easily mold them and get them on side, but you've got to be, really smart about it. And it was hard. It was really hard. They weren't used to having an expat manager. They were used to, the girl that had been running it before still stayed in the business.
That's awkward.
Yeah, exactly. She wasn't overly happy about, being pushed aside. Then, there was a little bit of, I guess a few challenges within the team and all that. But essentially, I learned how to win them over. I guess that's the probably simplest way of putting it. What is it that motivates them? How did I need to treat them? I mean, there's a funny story. I always tell this in my training that I do for spa connectors, when we talk about emotional intelligence and communication and dealing with other cultures. There was one instance towards the start of my time in Thailand, and we were all out as a team doing yoga on one of the lawns. And something happened, like there was a phone message for someone or something, and I went up to one of the team members and she was lying on the floor with her eyes closed doing like Shavasana or something. And
Mm-hmm.
I tapped her with my foot. Said,
Oh.
say, hey, can I get up? I need you to come in and do whatever. But it's a big no-no in Thailand to one point at anything with your foot, or let alone touch someone with your foot. So I did know this, but I totally forgot. And I was just, it was an accident, didn't mean it. But anyway, she got up, she went in and did her thing. And then later on in the day, she said, Kun Kat, I just wanted to tell you that when you did that, like it was very upsetting for me and made me feel very uncomfortable. And I was like, oh my God, like I felt so, I was mortified because obviously I didn't.
It's such a simple gesture that you wouldn't
Yeah.
think twice about.
No, exactly. But I really did take it very seriously, their culture. So it's very important that you respect the culture of the country that you're living in. And so I was quite mortified. And one of the managers who was a little bit narky at me managed to get the story around that I had kicked the staff member or something, which I mean was crazy. But it was just quite interesting that, these little things, which was just a simple thing, could have become quite a big deal. And she was great. She was just like, yeah, you shouldn't do that. I was like, oh my God, I will never, ever do that again. And it will stick in my head forever that I'm so mortified that I did it.
So after that, you are still managing in Hua Hin. You managed to survive touching a staff member with your foot. How long were you there?
So I was there just over a year, and then they promoted me to go to the Middle East and sort out the properties over there, which at the time I think we had 6. That was within the UAE, and there was one in Jordan. And so I went there for a few months. I opened the property in Qasr Al Sarab in the Abu Dhabi desert, and the corporate office team in Bangkok came back to me and said, we want to offer you the international project manager role. You need to come back to Bangkok. And so I was like, okay, cool. So I went between Bangkok and Abu Dhabi for about 10 months because I was still looking after the Middle East and starting this role. And so international project manager was kind of like my dream gig. I got to create all of the spas from scratch for all of the new builds.
Exciting.
Yeah. So I think I did about 28 openings. I worked out.
Yes. That's a lot of spas, Kathryn.
Yeah. So that was in about 5 years. And so I would have at least, 5 or 6 on the go at once. And so I basically spent the remaining time at Minor, I was on a plane probably 2 weeks a month. And the creation side of it was everything from facility brief, which I would do with our tech services team, through to working with the interior designers and architects, so getting the whole operation flow, etc. done, and then concept. We would have existing concepts. So if it was an Anantara, we'd look at how do we take the Anantara concept, which was very much around Indigenous experiences. So a lot of times, like when we went into China, we'd have to create a new menu for the whole of China, and that would be, Indigenous Chinese treatments. And how do we do that? How do we then create the protocols? And I had a corporate office team of trainers, operations people, finance, etc. So,
but you weren't trained in how to create a spa facility. I mean, how did you know how to do that? Just from experience?
I don't know. I remember Kanita. She was running MStar at the time. She said to me, "Can you do this job?" I was like, "I'm sure I can."
Sure, why not?
She's like, "Can you do a facility brief for me if I wanted to create a spa? I've got like 1,000 square meters or something. Like, what would you put in it?" And so I made it up. And
1,000 square meters for our American listeners is 10,000 square feet, so nothing small.
No, exactly. But we wouldn't do any spas that were less than 1,000 square meters. So it was big. And so I don't know. I remember putting together this plan, and I really didn't know how to do it. But I think I had a few people that I asked a couple of questions with, but she was really happy with it, and she was like, okay, come back to Bangkok and take on this job. And I had a great handover. The guy who did the job before me, he had really done an amazing handover. So I just kind of learned as I went along, and did a lot of research on different spa concepts that were out there and what was going on, and just I was creative. So I was thought, okay, well, I'll come up with something new. And we were also doing the third-party spas. So by that time, I think I had about 60. Well, no, by the time I finished at Minor, I had 65 spas, but I opened quite a few third-party spas. So they were the spas that were in other people's hotels, and a lot of times they would be a Mandara or a brand that we would create. So we would go in there and work with the owners and the operators from all different brands, from Kapinski to Starwood at the time, Marriott, a couple of like really boutique ones like the Fully in Shanghai, and loads of different Emirates Palace. So I guess what for me, I mean, I absolutely loved my job at Minor. It was incredible. I got to travel. I got to meet incredible people. I made some excellent connections, and I think I mean that's what's helped me now, having my own business, is the connections that I made through Minor. That was meeting owners and owners reps and GMs and all sorts of people in the hotel industry, and now they come to me if they want a spa that's done, or they need some spa consulting or a business turnaround or something like that. So that was it was pretty incredible. But the thing with Minor is that the spa division was a subsidiary of the hotel group, so it's a standalone entity, and it had to be profitable. And so we had things called quarterly reviews, where we'd have to go and present in front of all of the XCOM. And so you'd have in a room 150 GMs, the committee, and I'd have to present the numbers. So just to backtrack a little bit, you want to just pause it for a second? I'll just put my dog. So it's a subsidiary of the hotel group. So we had to make money, and so we're presenting to the board, the XCOM, all these guys, and I needed to be able to present like all these numbers. So just to backtrack a little bit, after being international project manager, I then got promoted to operations manager, which was looking after all the properties globally from an operations perspective. I had someone that came in to help me with projects, but I still did a lot of the project work. And then I got promoted to group director, which basically meant I had a team underneath me, finance, HR, training, operations. And so from an operations perspective, I had regional people. So someone from Middle East, someone from Maldives, someone for Asia, someone for China, someone for Africa. So I had to make sure that all the properties were operating. And Minor was very much, whilst they weren't overly focused on what was happening in the spas from a concept perspective, they basically gave me carte blanche to do whatever I wanted. The numbers had to be there.
Yes,
so
it has to make money.
Exactly. So every month I'd have to sit in the board meetings and present the numbers. We couldn't have turn away. I'd have to track all the turn away. I didn't know exactly what was going on in every property. And then with the quarterly reviews, it was very much around what was happening. I had 4 different entities operating under the subsidiary, blah, blah, blah. I mean, these things I knew nothing about. And thankfully, I had a very supportive financial controller, which we did fight a lot, but he taught me absolutely everything. And it helped me to understand how to set up, offshore entities and how to move from one place to another, and how to, all of these things that I do now with my companies, I wouldn't have had a clue about.
So it was like graduate school training, really.
It was the most unbelievable job I think anyone could ever have. And more so I could do whatever I wanted. And I worked myself silly, creating, sub-brands. So I created the wellness concept for Anatara and started rolling that out. Created the Avani Spa concept. We brought in the Avani hotels. I'd always constantly be trying to upgrade the existing concepts we had and bring in different initiatives. How I got to do Spa Connectors is because I came up with an initiative for our challenge with staffing, because we were turning away revenue because we didn't have enough therapists. So, for us, actually, I think it was 1 year, 2015, I think it was, we turned away nearly $500,000 US.
Wow.
In the Middle East alone, from not having enough therapists. And that's
so the light bulb went off in your head and you said, I see a business idea here.
Well, I wanted, and I'd seen that I was spending probably 50% of my time dealing with recruitment. And it was always about trying to man these spas. It was trying to convince the GMs, because the GMs had the say over the hiring and so forth. I was responsible for the performance, as were they. I would get told off if they weren't performing and if there weren't enough therapists. But at the end of the day, I couldn't physically hire them for them. So
that's a difficult position.
But it's all corporate spa people have this same problem. Like, we're all in the boat. We're sitting there trying to create mandates for properties, but at the end of the day, it's up to the GM and the owner as to whether they follow them or not, right? So I was fighting constantly with GMs about, and HR managers and finance directors about, that you need more staff, you turn, blah, blah, blah. And what I was seeing was that we just had a gap. Someone would resign and have to give 30 days notice. But we knew to onboard a new therapist, it was going to take at least 3 months. And that's not even including having them trained up to then be able to work on clients. And it's important that they were trained.
Sure. And so even in the best case, you've got 2 months of downtime when someone leaves by that equation.
Exactly. So we're already losing revenue. We're going to lose more revenue because we don't have enough people. But also, we're charging, hundreds of dollars per hour for a treatment. You can't just grab someone off the street and be like, hey, let's go do a massage.
No, you need a quality therapist.
People are savvy these days. It's not like back when spas first opened that you could get away with probably giving a below average massage. You can't do that. So I came up with an idea where we would have some hubs, and it wasn't new. Like Mandara was doing it as well and things like that, but it was a little bit more specific to the property. So what we would do is we would recruit a bunch of people in different locations. We'll have a hub in key locations that had great talent. We would train them up on the protocols of that specific property. So we'd earmark them for a specific property, so that they actually could start generating revenue when they got on the property, rather than being trained up when they got there, which essentially ended up taking forever because they didn't have enough people, and wouldn't be worthwhile. And the property would have to pay a fee for that person. The fee was like $1,000. It was nothing. So, and that would cover the person's training, accommodation, recruitment, all that. They'd have to obviously pay their flight there and their visa costs and all that, but there was really nothing. And so I came up with this concept. I got all the training skills sorted, did the business model, went to my bosses. They were like, yep, brilliant, let's do this, but you are going to have to convince the GMs to put the money in the budget or pay for these things. So I started going out to each property, and I think I got 6 properties in, and out of 65.
10% adoption rate, not as good as you'd hope.
They were just like, no, it's too much, we don't want to pay it. And I was like, what? You guys are so short-sighted. And it does come down to, and I see it now, if you're a GM on a property, you're usually there for a couple of years, and you've got certain bonuses and targets to reach. That bonus that you make can be enough to buy a new house or pay off debt, or you're talking $60,000-$70,000 in some instances for people. For them, that's more important. They don't get paid in line with the hours they work and all that sort of stuff. But for them, the bonus is really important. And so making long-term decisions for the business is really challenging because they need to make money short-term. So it just wasn't working. And I still have this problem today with my current business of people thinking long-term, because GMs aren't going to be there. Even asset managers aren't going to be there. They want to see a return for their owners. It's only when I get in with the owners now to them about the things they could do for like long-term returns on their businesses that I can actually get things across the line. But yeah, I honestly.
So you took that idea and you spun it into Spa Connectors, but you have more owners and more properties to work with now.
Well, I could see that the concept would work with any hotel out there, any standalone property out there. The concept would work. And I spoke to people in the industry and they're like, yep, it'll work. The challenging part was the recruitment part of it, which I'll get to. But yeah, so I decided, listen, I'm going to save up money. I think I've worked for I'd already been saving a bit of money, probably should have saved a lot more than I did. Had a very nice life for a while there. But I saved up money and I started the company myself. Had a business partner at start. Started Spa Connectors, and Spa Connectors was training schools, training up therapists with our own courses, as well as internationally accredited ones, placing them in jobs. And for them, they could pay for the training, and then we would get paid by the property for recruitment. Along with the training, they were guaranteed a job. We'd have to vet them first to make sure that they were good enough to then be placed. If we, like when we first saw them, that we wouldn't ever be able to place them in a job, we wouldn't take them on for training because that was part of the package. And so that was how we started the model. That was 2016. I started that.
So how many people would you say you've placed at this point through Spa Connectors? Do you have any idea?
Yes, I do know this. Probably about 5,000.
Wow. Kathryn, that's a lot of people. Good for you. Good for you. Well, we don't have much time left, but I want to jump ahead to the last year where you weren't placing spa people in jobs because spas were closed and most people were sitting tight, but Kathryn decided she would start a new business in the year of a pandemic. Tell us a little bit about the Hall of Wellness.
So I'd always thought about doing some sort of awards program because for me, it's really important to recognize individuals. And I felt like in our industry, we had lots of really amazing award programs, but they weren't necessarily focused around the individual. It was very much around the business. And a lot of them, whilst they were amazing, there was, always talk around the fact that there were sponsors and the sponsors then led to who won and so forth. And I just wanted it to be a really non-biased standalone awards that people can really showcase who they are and what they did. And COVID hit. I had 15 staff. I didn't want to let them go. I was like sitting at home thinking, what on earth am I going to do? And we tried a few things to try and generate a bit of money, but it was never going to be enough to be able to get my team through. And what I did was started thinking about this awards program. And it was basically because we started a Facebook group that had all these people on the ground, whether it's therapists, managers, whatever, in there, just as a support group, so that they could talk to each other and really chit chat about what was happening and the stresses they were under and all that. And what I was seeing was that more and more of them were just being let go and or being put on leave without pay. And depending on the country, a lot of them were getting no
support, right?
Like that. And the operators were basically saying to me, listen, we'll get staff back. when we come back online.
Mm-hmm.
Not knowing when that was going to be. And these people were just sort of tossed aside, basically, and with no real regard to the fact that they've perhaps been in their jobs for a certain amount of time, how long they've been trained for. These people that we have working in our spas and wellness centres and clinics and salons and whatever, like, they're not just warm bodies. They're people who have actually put
A lot of training, a lot of thought.
Yeah. I already have a massive problem that we don't pay people according to their level of experience and expertise in our industry. We pay them based on, award wages or set wages based on this particular person should get paid this because, they're a level 1 or whatever. But we, especially in the part of the world where I am, if you're an Asian therapist, you get this much money. If you're a Western therapist, you get this. It doesn't matter if you're an Asian therapist and you've had 20 years experience and you've studied more than a Western therapist. Still going to be in this category of, sorry, the package is this, that's it. And I have a massive problem with that. And it just started to make me think, what are we doing here? We're not why would anyone want to come into our industry? Because we don't make it, we don't attract them. We don't do anything to make people want to come in and stay. Why would you want to spend money on a beauty therapy diploma or a dermal therapy diploma or whatever when you don't know if your job's safe?
So that brought you back to wanting to recognize the individual.
Yeah. So
and hence the awards.
I thought the stories of these individuals and being shared and sort of highlighting the industry would be something that would be worthwhile. And so I got a great group of judges on board, you being one of them.
Thank you.
Got my team, just running around, and we started going out to the market. We got about 100 industry ambassadors on board that shared it everywhere for us, and we really got some great coverage. We got sponsors that were incredible. The sponsorship money helped go towards scholarship fund, which we'll talk about, but also helped me to get my team through. We cut back everything, cut back offices, like everything, bare minimum. That was just about trying to get the staff through. And we had a lot of people donating trainings, mentorships, internships, all that sort of stuff. And we've actually just got all of them filled up now, which is really exciting. And then, so we did the awards, incredible feedback, really created something, and we're going to do it again this year.
The feedback was amazing. And I have to say, from the judge perspective, I really enjoyed meeting these people that I never would have met. We had great conversations. Of course, everything done on Zoom, even your gala was done on Zoom. It was just an amazing effort that you and your team put out, but it really supercharged people's feelings about the industry that they're in. So I give you big credit for that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was so that people had something to look forward to. It also, the process of people going through the nominations and the judging meant that they had to start talking about themselves and remembering why they were so good, why they did what they did to get into the industry. And I think that also creates momentum and motivation that some people have lost. And so many people have messaged me since, just saying, thank you so much. You've given us something to kind of get us going again. And that for me was everything.
Well, that was a great thing to do at that time, honestly.
I'm so proud of it. I mean, look, we hit the gala mid-December. We had the gala. I really just limped through from the business perspective. And I had to let go of all my staff at the end of the year. So that has been really tough for me. I've spent Christmas here because I couldn't get back to Australia. Thankfully, I have amazing friends, but it really for me was, I'd gone through this huge year of just trying to hold on to everyone, and I couldn't do it anymore because there just wasn't business coming in.
No, it makes sense though, Kathryn. At least you kept them through the year, and things will pick up now. This year
what
goes
we're
on.
Now is that I'm getting absolutely slammed and doing it myself. And, I started getting people to send me their CVs through my WhatsApp. started to build the database through my phone. I mean, we already had a massive database, but just knowing like who's available and who's there, and then the recruitment gigs just started flowing in, and I've just been placing. And then the consulting projects have started coming in again. Exciting, and yeah, so starting to pick up, which means that one, I can get rid of any debts I have with the staff and things like that. I've got to like clear all that, and I really want to make sure that for me it's I'm doing this all myself, and I'm just getting everything out the way, and I'm hustling to just clear the slates, and then when I can start to then bring on some staff again. We're actually in the process of just automating all of our recruitment. Because we just have a huge database, and we've got massive opportunity there. And we seem to be the go-to people for recruitment, which is amazing. And I'd love to be able to help. I mean, we've been doing a lot of pro bono work for people, because I just keep getting amazing CVs. And whilst hotels don't necessarily want to pay, I just keep sending them to the hotels and saying, please just hire these people, because they're so damn good. And it's like I've worked with before, or they've got great references or whatever, and it's no skin off my back to send them through and try and get them a job.
So it's a great time. It's a great time to enter the industry. Is the end of the day. We've had a tough time, but that's part of the reason I started this podcast, is because there is a lot of opportunity for everyone, whether you're trained as a therapist or a manager. And your example of working in restaurants is a great segue into the spa industry. They're very similar, right? You have an appointment, a reservation, the guest comes in, they have an expectation, they enjoy the ambiance and the food at the same time, and then they go home, and you don't have homework, so there's similar patterns. And I'm hoping that people listening will be inspired by your story and those of the others that I've interviewed, and come and join us in the wellness industry. Please look up spaconnectors.com, because Kathryn can hook you up with a job.
I mean, honestly, the concepts that are coming out, people are creating some incredible things. Like all sorts of wellness hybrids that are big facilities, whether they have the accommodation attached to them or their day properties or what have you. Like, people are really thinking outside the box, and it's really exciting. So I went out the other day, I put a post out on LinkedIn and said, if anyone knows any talent that's in the industry that I don't already know or don't have on my radar, please can you send them through? And I'm getting CVs every day, maybe 100 a day.
Amazing.
Phone, and some of the people, oh my God, like the talent is incredible. And I just keep calling up people, like, I've got this really good girl, can you just take them? Can you just take them? Because I know that they'll be a benefit to their business.
Those are good words of encouragement for anyone listening to jump in now. Thank you so much for joining us, Kathryn Moore, Spa Connectors, Hall of Wellness Awards, and we look forward to seeing what you make this year.
Yep. Yeah, it's the hustle here. But thank you for having me so much, and thank you for your support always with my businesses.
My pleasure.
Yeah.